(6'2". So all right, now we have our post hole dug that this is going to sit into for our 4x6 to support this. So I'm going to take our board that's going to be underneath this floor, running all the way across, and I'm going to do some basic, very basic joinery on the corners. And so we're going to have a board that's going to run laterally across this floor at 6'3" on both spots. And it will support everything in the center on a 4x6 with the 5.5" orientation vertically. And then this is pretty darn flat, within a 1/16 of an inch all the way across. So there's not a lot to do here, but I want to make sure that this is fully supported. This will get blocked to my rim board going this way so that it doesn't have any room to sway. Not that it probably will, but one board isn't going to kill me. And so I'm going to do a pair of methods for doing this, so that one section of my 4x6 will have a section taken out of it at the top all the way across that's 1.5 inches wide, and that will sit up against this. And I will have a second board, I will have a second cutout on the vertical section. Well, I'll show you. It's simpler just to show you than it is to explain it. So, we were outside digging. Unfortunately, it's raining in bursts, hard enough that, you know, it's not really a good day to be out there moving dirt. So in here we have plenty to do, and we'll continue on with this. Now the first thing we're going to do with this board is to true this factory in. The 4x6s don't tend to come from the factory with anything even remotely close to a square end. As you can see, that's not even close. So we're going to true this up. That's 8 feet. Not one of my cleanest cuts, but we're going to be trimming 1.5 inches off of this anyway, so. Okay, next we're going to check our distance. 8 foot right in the center. Cool. But we're not going from the outside of that. So we're going to actually back up just a little bit. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to slide this into the center. Next, we're going to look at our new board and see what portion we want to remove. This portion is from when the tree was the youngest on the inside, and these are the more mature. So this is the worst wood. So this is what we're going to want to take away. Is it square? This end is yes. We want 35 inches of this 4x6. But we're going to leave it attached for right now. Our next step that we're going to do is we're going to look at our actual depth of our board. Actual depth of our board is 7 1/4. We do not want the board to come all the way to the top. We want to avoid that. So we're going to put this at, I'm going to say, 1/2 inch back. So 6 3/4. Then we want the bearing on this to be the full depth of our board. So we are going to go down 1 1/2 inches. If we went too deep, that's okay. We want the board to rest directly on this. By having it be shorter, that means we can pull it up onto the board tightly if there was any wobble or chip out, or we overcut it just slightly. So now we're going to lay this back down. And we have a depth for our line here, which is a little wobbly, but it's just a marker. Now we're going to snap the battery out. Okay, now because I like having fingers, we're going to lift, well, it's already lifted up. We're going to push the back on this down until we are just short of that line. Hold, reattach tightly. Now we're going to make a series of cuts. Doesn't really matter which ones you start from. I like mine to be less than 1/2 inch apart. Now I enjoy wearing safety glasses, but I don't know if you can see that. I couldn't really see much for those last 2 cuts. It is 97% humidity in here and 94 degrees. And it's a little foggy. All right, next. This board is very, very wet. Now you can do this next step with a router, a handsaw, a chisel, a plane, a timber slick, lots of different things. I just find this to be the simplest and basically the fastest for me. Fortunately, with this larger piece of wood, I have a lot of resistance to the force that I put into the board. Is it perfect? No, but it works pretty well. Now, does this have to be perfectly smooth? No. It has to be perfectly straight. No. I've already got a nice flat bottom here for this weight to bear it. But I have my own time, so I'm going to do it right as far as I'm concerned. Not here. It is not agreeing to me. That it should be removed. All right. Leather cap back on because this guy's almost razor sharp. Set him over here out of the way. Now the next step is to cut this to true length. Now if, for example, we wanted to, and I think we will, we're actually going to make our next notch now. Because it's a duplicate of this one. The larger the piece of board is, generally speaking, the easier this is to do, especially if you're doing this with a router. Now, as you can see, sometimes you get a lot better location for planing down. And you could, and I'm not advocating this if you're on a battery and you're on a limited charge, you can actually clean it up with the saw itself that you made the cuts with. Okay, we're going to go with 30 and a half.